at LBC. Here to talk about this with me is Julie Lenarz, Executive Director at the Human Security Centre, and Dr. Tara McCormack, Lecturer in International Politics at the University of Leicester. A question to both of you really to start with. Julie, first of all, do you believe we're being told broadly the truth?
Yes, I think, I personally find it very difficult to wrap my head around the absurdity of what Asma al-Assad has said in her interview, because let's be very clear, we are talking about the wife of a mass murdering dictator who lives in a country where free media is literally non-existing and whose husband is collaborating in the murder of his own people with other regimes. I'm looking at Russia, I'm looking at Iran, where free media is also literally non-existing, where it's punished with persecution, with prison, even with death. So from, hearing from her that she complains about the coverage of the media is absolutely grotesque. It's absolutely absurd.
That to one side, if you can put that to one side in this discussion, are we doing it right in the West? Are we telling it right?
Well, I think what we are rightly focusing on is at the mass murder that we're seeing in Syria, and of course the situation at this point is very complex. It was never black and white. Now it's definitely no longer black and white. But the fact remains that the vast majority of people in Syria are being mass slaughtered by the Assad regime. The vast majority of people fleeing the country are fleeing from the Assad regime. That doesn't mean that victims are only on one side, and that obviously the jihadists are not the good guys in this fight, but neither is the Assad regime, and that is the line that Syrian state TV, Russia Today, Press TV are pushing for many months now, namely that Assad needs to be the good guy because obviously the jihadists are the bad guys. Well, that is not the case, and the truth is the reason why we are looking at so many jihadist groups in Syria is the bloodshed caused by the Assad regime. It's a direct reaction to the bloodshed of the Assad regime.
Dr. Tara McCormack, on that same question, do you believe the truth is being told here in the West, by the West?
Hello, thank you very much for asking me on the programme. Well, it depends what we are talking about. It of course is not a lie that the East Aleppo, a part of Aleppo, is being absolutely pummeled by Russia and Syria. The rest of Aleppo functions reasonably well, as a recent thing on Channel 4 showed. So it depends. Does the Western media present the Syrian war in an unbiased manner? I would say clearly no.
Tell me where its bias is.
Okay, well, for example, the war is presented currently, the Syrian civil war is being presented as if it's a sort of Russian-initiated and sponsored war. Now, this is very far from the truth. We are told that Russia holds all the power, Russia can resolve the war, etc., and its failure to do so is being increasingly used as an increasingly hostile narrative that we're hearing from Britain.
But it's interesting you say that's the prism through which we're being told this story, because it isn't the prism through which I tell it, and it isn't the prism through which I have heard it over the 5 years that this war has been going on. Russia relatively new into it, in relative terms,
yeah.
But it was very much a product of the Arab uprisings to start with. It quickly changed into something else, but those were its beginnings, weren't they?
Well, I agree, absolutely. But certainly, if one opens the papers today or browses The Guardian or the BBC, that's absolutely not what you will see discussed, even thinking to the parliamentary debate last Tuesday, when Emily Thornby, at the emergency debate called by Andrew Mitchell, dared to point out that this was a complicated, multi-leveled war. Of course, she was called Neville Chamberlain for her trouble. So today, so I absolutely agree with you, and I'm not saying that everyone presents the same way, but the broad presentation of this is an absolute erasure of the reality, the origins of the war, the complexity of the war, and also, so if I may quick add,
yeah,
the known but very little discussed fact that it is our allies, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, Turkey, that are funding and sponsoring ISIS and other jihadi groups in Syria to fight Assad. Now, we know that. We know that the American government knows that, thanks to WikiLeaks, one of the leaked emails. We know that our government knows that. Now, we also know that America itself has sponsored jihadi groups and funded them because in 2011, again, this is a sort of known thing, the Obama administration decided on regime change. Now, if the war were presented equally, we would be reading a lot more of that, and I promise you that the debate in the House of Commons last week would have been very different.
Final thought from you, Julie Lenarz. Julie Lenarz.
Sorry?
Yeah, a final thought from you on what Dr. Tara McCormack was just saying there about the prism through which this war is being presented. Social media, I suppose, has an important role to play here.
Well, with all respect, I totally disagree with what she's saying. I mean, it's not the Obama administration that decided on regime change in Syria. It's been the Syrian people that decided that he needed to go. And actually, the US tried to stay out of Syria for quite a long time, and Obama was criticized for that inaction for a very long time. To sort of paint it as a regime change policy by the US, and Russia was sort of dragged into this is completely false. I mean, the actions of Russia in this war are very deliberate. They are taking part in bombing hospitals, aid convoys, bakeries, schools, kindergartens in eastern Aleppo, and they're rightly being called out for it. And I think